Hello and a very warm welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Sanam Shantier. Coming up on our programme this week, coronavirus in Lebanon. The country enters its second lockdown as cases surge and hospitals struggle with a number of patients. One of al-Qaeda's founding leaders is killed on the streets of Tehran by Israeli agents at the behest of the US. That's according to the New York Times, a claim denied by Iran. We'll have more from one of the reporters behind that piece, Ronen Bergman. Also coming up on our programme this week, a stream in Israel stirs up controversy. Local residents of a kibbutz have closed the bank's gates to other communities in the vicinity. We start with Lebanon, which has entered its second lockdown to curb the spread of the coronavirus. This, as the country reports over 100,000 cases. Officials hope the latest restrictions will give the health sector time to avoid a collapse. But many fear the economic impact, especially local businesses, which were already buried under the rubble.
The hustle and bustle typical of Lebanon's capital, Beirut, is nowhere to be seen as the country enters yet another total lockdown. A final blow for many local businesses already withered after a long year of economic crises. Mustafa Najjar owns a sound engineering business for events. He had no choice but to close down.
Well, basically in the beginning of 2020, the business was really good the last summer, and we was doing lots of parties and hiring good equipment every Saturday and almost every weekend. And suddenly the lockdown came in Lebanon, so it's not only affected the business, it killed the business.
Yusuf Hamdan is a taxi driver. With the new restrictions in place, he can only drive every other day according to his license plate number, except on Sundays when all driving is banned. As he relies on a daily income, Yusuf says he is worried he may not make ends meet.
Our income has been reduced by over 80%. If everything is closed and customers are staying at home, how can we work? Personally, the government's helped me twice. I get £400,000 every 2 months. That's a quarter of what I pay for rent. It's nothing.
Yusuf is among the lucky few who received help from the government, which has been criticized for offering little or no support to businesses and individuals. Barber Mustafa al-Janoudi, who is struggling to cover his medical expenses, says he has no choice but to risk breaking the rules.
I need to take 10 medicines a day. How could I buy them if I stayed at home for 15 days? What can I do? I open the store and close it secretly like a thief. If the police catches me, I'm in trouble.
With over 1,000 cases per day in the last month, authorities say a total lockdown is not an option. But despite the alarming situation, many believe it is not the right solution for Lebanon.
Turning our attention to a story which has been grabbing headlines across the globe. Last week, the New York Times reported that Israeli agents, at the behest of the US, assassinated al-Qaeda's number 2 on the streets of Tehran. Abu Muhammad al-Masri was gunned down along with his daughter Miriam, who was also the widow of Osama bin Laden's son. And this was no accident. She was also reportedly a target as she was being groomed for a leadership role in al-Qaeda. Iran has vehemently denied these reports. Now, to shed some light on this story, I'd like to welcome back to the programme Ronen Bergman. He's one of the writers of that piece. He's also the author of Rise and Kill First, the secret history of Israel's targeted assassinations. Ronen, good to have you with us again.
Thank you for the invite. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Now, the killing, according to your report, Ronen, happened on August the 7th. When did you and your outlet get hold of this information first? And why do you think it took so long for the story to emerge?
Yeah, since we broke the story, I heard and I read many commentators and knowledgeable analysts saying that they know why we have published it this time and not the other. But the truth is, it took us time to report, to vet, to check the facts, to solve other delicate issues with sources and other complicated topics surrounding such a sensitive story. When we felt all is sold, when the editors felt this is done, we published. That's it.
It is absolutely super intricate, and there have been some reports, actually, Ronen, that the killing happened in late October when the news was first leaked to the Afghan outlet Shemshad Network. They then proceeded to tweet about it on October the 31st. Any thoughts on that?
No, this is just this is a mixed up of journalists. There was another al-Masri who was killed indeed in Afghanistan. It's a much lower ranked al-Qaeda operative. And someone mixed between this al-Masri and the one that was killed in Tehran, but reported only that Saturday, and thought that the one that was killed in Afghanistan is the second in command of al-Qaeda. Just a mistake.
I see, because the photo that, as far as I know, that was tweeted is the photo of the al-Masri in question. So that was a mistake, you're saying?
If you read the original reports from Afghan intelligence, they identified the right al-Masri. It's not the one that was killed. The one that was killed in Iran on August 7, his name is Abdallah Ahmed Abdallah. Al-Masri is just his Hanum Laguerre. It's not his real name. It's the name that he became known for as an operational commander, the head of operational command of al-Qaeda. The people who are in the know and the original publication from Afghan intelligence were correct. It's a total new person. By the way, we still await, as you said, the Iranians vehemently denied the fact that he was killed, and we still await for official recognition from al-Qaeda, noting the death of their second in command. I think they don't want to do that when their leader, Ayman al-Zawahiri, is so severely ill with cancer. They feel weak. But in time, I think, in the coming few weeks, we will have an official recognition from al-Qaeda that they lost their second in command.
And Ronen, you just mentioned Iran. In the New York Times piece, you also allude to the fact that it was really surprising. Not really, but it was surprising that al-Masri was in Iran. And I suppose what was even more surprising for us was that a high-ranking operative like that would be freely roaming the streets of northern Tehran.
Yeah, and when we try to look into this issue as well, because Iran always identified, the regime in Iran identified al-Qaeda and Daesh and ISIS as Satan himself. So how come you give Satan shelter, a posh apartment in an upscale neighborhood in northern Tehran? And I think that the answer to this are two possible explanations. One is to join forces with al-Qaeda on operating against common enemies like the United States. And second, to keep an eye on al-Qaeda leadership, to make sure that al-Qaeda doesn't run operations inside Iran or against Iranian interests. And I think that Iran wanted to achieve both. They had him, they gave him false passport and documentation, they sheltered him, they thought, or he thought that nobody will be able to get to him in Tehran, but they also kept an eye on him, making sure that he's not going.
They did keep an eye on him, and I'm going to interrupt you because we're running out of time. The reason I ask that is because these kinds of figures are usually actually guarded by the security forces, reportedly, of the Revolutionary Guards in Iran. They shadow them. And if that was indeed the case, do you know what happened to them in this assassination job? Really briefly, if you can.
He was not guarded 24 hours, and they thought that by using false identity as a Lebanese Shiite history scholar, he will be safe enough. But as we said, Israeli intelligence was able to understand who is that guy and get to him and kill him.
And Ronen, I want to ask your opinion on something. If this killing did happen and we're waiting for that confirmation from al-Qaeda, do you think this was done to essentially kill two birds with one stone, eradicate a top al-Qaeda operative in Iran, and perhaps, as some observers have suggested, hope for some sort of a violent reaction from Iran that could in turn again bring us to the brink of conflict?
Well, if this is the case, then why wouldn't the United States or Israel or both publish it? And they didn't. And
why didn't they?
Fact, because of reasons I'm not sure I am aware of. But what I am aware of is that they have tried, both countries have tried to do their best to make sure that nobody knows that he was killed and that these countries were involved in his assassination. Though, as you said, they could boast with this achievement and embarrass the Iranians. Maybe there are things in the making that we don't yet understand.
And maybe we will at some point, hopefully. Ronen Bergman, thank you so much for coming back and speaking to us on Middle East Matters again to share your insights with us. Now to a story about a small stream which is stoking ethnic divisions between Jews. Part of this stream crosses a kibbutz, a collective community in Israel, which was built by European Jews more than 6 decades ago. Now, residents of the neighbouring town, mostly Arab and North African Jews, want the right to swim there, but the kibbutz won't agree. Iris Makler has more.
Here's the stream that's causing all the problems. It runs through kibbutz Nir David, which was founded in 1936. Tamir grew up on the kibbutz and lives here with his wife and son.
I was born in '87, so my entire life I was born and raised in the kibbutz. So I used to play here in the river, play in the grass outside, swim. Very good memories.
Residents of surrounding towns now want access to this section of the creek. And under Israeli law, a river can't be privately owned. But kibbutz families who settled here when the place was just a swamp see this as an intrusion.
It's a private land that we're sitting on. We are paying $300,000 every single year for this land. And their demand for 9.5 million people for the entire Israel just come over, sits in a kindergarten. You know, there's no security. They can sit at people's homes, do barbecues. Who's going to clean after them? They're calling us Nazis. And there are people that are Holocaust survivors that live here.
In the evening, protesters gather at the entrance to the kibbutz. If the tone is rising, it's because this little creek is a symptom of a deep rift and historic discrimination. Most of the protesters are Mizrahim, North African and Arab Jews. In their eyes, the people behind these barriers are the Ashkenazi elite, European Jews, who they say discriminated against their parents and grandparents during the early days of the state.
When Israel was founded, and even before, people came here from Arabs, from the Middle East and Arab countries, and they put them in places that are, I can say, not as beautiful as here. They took over the places that has the water and the facilities and everything. And now we are looking for justice.
Some protesters make it inside. The kibbutz guards don't stop them. They come out with a smile. Though they didn't swim, they feel they did right a wrong.
Well, that's it from us. Thank you for watching.